Hello, it's Alpha here, and today we're gonna be talking about Shadow Essence. First, I'm quickly going to explain what Shadow Essence is and how you can use it, and then I'm gonna be talking about the different heroes that you can use it on, and especially I'm gonna be focusing on Walker. So Shadow Essence is something that was added to AFK Journey recently. You can acquire it if you have unlocked the newest season, the Chain of Eternity. And once you get to the seasonal content, there is something called the seasonal milestone rewards. And within those rewards, you will get Shadow Essence. And basically you get something like 40 Shadow Essence every week. So the total of Shadow Essence that you will be getting during the season is 600. At least that's the number that you will get from the seasonal milestones. And what Shadow Essence allows you to do is you can upgrade hero's enhanced force skill. Basically what that means, the enhanced force, is it allows you to upgrade some of the hero's Supreme Plus ability. So here you can see that I have selected the Supreme Plus ability and it gives me this option to upgrade it to level 2 and the upgrade cost is 100. So that means that since we are getting at least 600 during the seasonal milestone, we can upgrade at least 6 heroes with this resource. And like I said, the enhanced force is basically tied into the hero's Supreme Plus ability. So in order for you to be able to upgrade the ability, you have to have the specific hero at Supreme Plus level at least. Okay, so currently there is very little information about these upgrades. Now the only ones that are active at the moment are Walker and Mirael. So right now you can only upgrade Walker and Mirael's enhanced force, and that's why we're going to be talking about Walker today. But there was a mention on one of the posts on the official Discord that enhanced force skill upgrades will be gradually made available also for Soren, Atalanta, Satrana and Salazer. I would assume that that means since we are getting the Shadow Essence from the seasonal milestones, that we would also get these upgrades for all of these heroes at some point during this season. And as far as I understand, the idea behind these upgrades is that it's a way for them to boost the usability of some of these heroes that are kind of underutilized right now. So we're gonna go through the heroes, but basically none of these heroes are used that much right now. So it's a nice way for them to kind of try to up the use. But at the same time, that also means that most likely no meta heroes will be seeing any of these enhanced force upgrades anytime soon, because there are still quite a few of these heroes that are not being used right now. And as I mentioned, there is not that much information about these upgrades yet. We don't know right now what the upgrades for all of these heroes will be, aside from Walker and Mirael. And also they haven't told us if these upgrades are even gonna stay once the season actually ends. So we don't know much about them right now. So these are the heroes that are going to get the enhanced force upgrade. And I'm gonna quickly talk a little bit about all of them heroes, and then we can talk about Walker a bit more in detail. We can start from Satrana. These are her basic stats. I don't think the basic stats are that interesting because all of the heroes have very similar basic stats, so they're not big outliers in terms of their HP, attack and defense. But instead we can just focus on their current usability. If we start with Satrana, she is used in PvP to some extent because she has good synergy with Bonnie. She deals magic damage and she can trigger the Bonnie's aging debuff, so that's why she's sometimes used in Bonnie teams. She can also be good against magic heavy teams, so teams that deal only magic damage. Usually that means that if the team is using Tassi and Tailin, for example, and then maybe they're also using Fresto and like Lilimay or something like that, because Satrana has the ability to give magic resist to the team, and she also has vitality reduction, which means that your opponent's healing spells and shielding spells are not gonna be as effective. So she is kind of already used, not like super much, but sometimes in normal arena. So if she's getting a buff, then that's probably gonna be your priority one when it comes to upgrading these heroes, because she can be great already. Mirael, we know her upgrade. Basically, it gives her more attack speed during the fight, a lot more attack speed, which may sound good, but at the moment she's not really used in any game modes because, well, I think one of her issues with PvP is that she has really short range. So all of her abilities and auto attacks only have range of 3. So she has to like walk very close to the enemy and she's wasting time walking around in the battlefield. So that kind of affects her ability to actually do damage. And also because of her kit is kind of tied into her using an ultimate. So she has to use her ultimate for the first time in the battle, and then she will get some buffs by doing it. So that means that at the start of the battle, she's not going to be as effective before she does her first ultimate. So she's just kind of a bit too slow for the current arena meta. Because of these reasons, I don't think she will be really used on PvP even after the enhanced force upgrade. I mean, it does buff her attack speed a lot, and she can really do a lot of damage if she is able to like attack freely, but usually that's not the case in arena. Especially you can't really use her on defense. Maybe on attack you can use her, but I mean there are probably just easier options for you to use instead of her, so I don't see reason to use her. In terms of Dream Realm, she's kind of able to do like decent damage, but there are still like, even now there are better damage dealing options usually than her. And then especially once we get into the endless mode, then true damage will be even stronger probably, so she's not going to be used in Dream Realm in my opinion. The only place that she kind of can be good, I guess, is gonna be the faction trial, like the faction tower mode, but then at the same time you don't really need to focus on that mode at all. And maybe the best place for her will be the Ravage Realm, if it's gonna be added to the game during this season as well. I would assume that she can be used in Ravage Realm, because that's like then you're only gonna be using Lightbearer heroes, and I think she's gonna be like the second best damage dealer in the Ravage Realm after someone like Mirael, or maybe even better, I don't know. So yeah, for Ravage Realm she probably will be used. But that's it. I don't think the enhanced force will change her usability that much. Atalanta, I've pretty much never seen anyone use her, and I haven't tried using her. I don't even have her at Mythic Plus right now, or Supreme Plus, so I can't really do any testing. But if I get access to the Pioneer server at some point, I will try to use her more and test if she's at all viable in like PvP, and especially once we know her upgrade, then if that changes something. I think her issue is kind of same, that she is first of all she's Lightbearer, and in general Lightbearers are not very good in PvP. So then if you want to use Lightbearer, there has to be like really good reason to use them. And Atalanta has quite short range. I think her range is 4, which means that she will have to sometimes walk around. I think she has some interesting skills. She has some like crowd control effects in her ultimate. The ultimate will stun enemies, and then she can like immobilize enemies with one of her abilities. And that same ability also steals 10% of the enemy's attack power and like their physical resist or something like that. So that sounds like decent. So maybe she can be used. I will have to see you once the upgrade come, but I don't think that's enough of a reason to start like building her right now. And then we have Salazer, and I have him at Mythic Plus, so I have tried to use him on like normal arena, but he just doesn't do any damage, even though he's like a rogue character. I don't know why he doesn't do any damage, but I mean, he has to walk, once again, he's a melee range hero, so he has to walk into the melee range, and then that generates usually a lot of issues. Like, melee heroes are kind of bad in PvP sometimes, because if the enemy is running someone like Thoran, then Salazer will die to the Thoran. If they're running someone like Fresto, then he's gonna be hitting the Fresto, and obviously that's not gonna do that much damage because the Fresto is a tank. So, like, he's just usually not gonna do that much damage during the fight. He does have one quite interesting skill, and here is the description, but the interesting part is that it will make the enemy unable to move or act for 5 seconds, so basically stunning the enemy, I guess, for 5 seconds. So that's the reason why I kind of tried to use him. But the issue with that skill is that it has this... well, it has a global range, so that's a good thing. He can cast it from anywhere, but it has this condition that the enemy has to be below 70% health. So once they fall below 70% health, then he should cast this skill to the enemy. But this skill has quite a long cast time. I think it's like 2 seconds or 3 seconds or something. So even if like multiple enemies fall under the 70% health, then it will take him like 9 seconds to cast it on 3 different targets or something like that. So it's like just awkward skill to use. So unless the enhanced force like changes it something like the cast speed is gonna be faster, then I'm not sure that he's gonna be used that much either. I guess one other interesting thing about this skill is that it's saying that with the skill power you can like extend the stun duration by quite a lot. So I would be interested in seeing that once we actually unlock the mythic charms, which allows you to give skill power to this hero, then does he become more usable because of the stun will be so long. So then you would kind of just run him as stun hero, so you don't expect him to do anything else than just stun the enemies with this spirit shackle ability. But yeah, I'll try that once we get the later on in the season and unlock the mythic charms. But for now he's just like not doing any damage, and he's kind of squishy because he goes to the melee range, and then yeah, it's this spirit shackles is like so slow skill to cast. Then we have Soren, who's gonna be getting the upgrade. I mean, I don't really know much about Soren because no one is using him right now in any game mode really. I know that during last season you could use him in like Supreme Arena with the teleport tiles, etc. So maybe in Supreme Arena he will see some use after, if the enhanced force upgrade is good. Okay, so lastly we have Walker, and we know what Walker's enhanced force is. So you can see here that I upgraded my Walker's enhanced force to level 2, and it means that he will get more crit rate, and then whenever his normal attacks crit on one of the enemies, he will do 60% more damage and gain 100 life drain. Okay, so do I then think that this enhanced force upgrade makes him usable, or that you should like kind of prioritize getting him? Well, no, not really. I don't think it's that great, the enhanced force, because basically he doesn't even do that much damage in the first place. Like, he does some damage, but damage is not really his thing. So him doing more damage with critical hits is like okay, it doesn't really matter that much. He will get some life drain, but it's not that important either, in my opinion. And there is also this condition, like he's not gonna be doing 60% more damage all the time. He's only gonna be doing 60% more damage when he does a critical hit. Well, he will do probably critical hits quite often, because I would say he has something like 75 to 80% crit hit chance against most enemies. So I guess most of the attacks that he does will be critical hits. But he also has to attack this one specific enemy who is carrying the bounty. So one of his abilities in his kit marks enemy with the bounty, and then when he's attacking that specific enemy, he will do more damage and life drain. So it's not even like all of the time, because he has to attack that one specific enemy. Now he's gonna be prioritizing attacking that enemy, but yeah, it's not very great in my opinion. Right now I don't really know that he's used in any game mode. At least I don't really see people talking about him at all. But actually what I've kind of discovered is that he is usable in normal PvP arena and probably on Supreme Arena as well, maybe he's worse on Supreme Arena, but at least on the normal arena he's kind of usable, even without this upgrade. So, I mean, if you're then using him on normal arena already, then you might as well do the upgrade. It's not gonna hurt him. Maybe in some situation it makes him a bit better, but I don't think this upgrade is not that like important for him, because he's not gonna be a damage dealer even after this upgrade. Even it might seem that, oh, he gets like critical hit chance and he gets 60% more damage. No, he's still not gonna be a damage dealer. So it's kind of like wasted upgrade on him to some extent. What he does in PvP is that he basically stuns enemies. So if you have him at Mythic Plus, he starts the battle by stunning at least 3 enemies. So that's basically his main job. Just stun the enemies and then tank some damage. He's not really a tank, but as you can see from he has quite a high like HP and physical and magical defense. So he can tank some hits, and his Supreme Plus ability also gives him shield sometimes in the fight. And then I guess if you upgrade the Enhanced Force, he sometimes also gets life drain. So I wouldn't say that he's really a tanky hero, but he can tank some hits. So that's usually enough that he tanks those hits and stuns the enemies. He also has some mini stuns on some of his other abilities. So then maybe throughout the battle he can dish out a couple extra stuns. The reason why he's kind of bad still is that he is, well, once again, he's light bearer, so he doesn't really fit into many teams, because most of the teams are like Maulers or Gravebones or Wilders, so he doesn't really fit into those teams. So you are kind of weakening your team by slotting in these light bearers. And then the main reason why he's bad is that he has a range of 2, so really short, basically melee range. So he has to walk around the arena, and he's really slow at walking. I guess it fits his name. But that means that a lot of the time he's not just doing anything, he's just like walking around. And then because he has to go into melee range, he quite often just takes damage from all kinds of AoE hits, like Toran might just kill him because he is like on the melee range, or Fresto is doing his AoE ultimate on like around him, so he's taking damage from that as well. And then, so then he just kind of ends up dying at some point in the fight. But the stun at the start of the battle is kind of enough for him to be usable. So let me show you some examples where you can use him.
て、僕の新発明。
These stats are taken from fights where I have his ability already upgraded. So you can see that he dealt like the least damage. I mean, Ludovic is support, so of course Ludovic is gonna be dealing the least damage. And then, yeah, here he deals the least damage. Here he deals a bit more than Tassi. Yeah, you can see that he's not gonna be a damage dealer even with the upgrade. But at the same time, you're also seeing that our team only has one Celestial Hypogean and one Paragon Hero, and we are winning against like decent opponents. Like here we have, I think, 4 Paragon Heroes, 2 Celestial Hypogeans and Paragon Heroes, Paragon 2, some more Paragon Heroes, 4 Paragon Heroes. So yeah, you can definitely win against like good teams using Walker in the team. And based on my testing so far, this has been kind of like the best team. So that you bring Bonnie, Tassi, and Taylene, and then this can be either Ludovic or Damien works as well. So you can use Damien if you don't want to use Ludovic, and then you bring in Walker. Now, I guess in theory this could also work with like Mythic plus Walker, and if you want to try it, then go ahead, you can try it with Mythic plus Walker, but of course if you have him at Supreme plus, then that's better. So when you're using Walker, I usually either place him at the front, and then I have someone like Ludovic behind him, so Ludovic will drop the healing here, and then Walker will tank the damage from Lily May, and then he will kind of tank the damage from these Fresto copies. And then he will stun all of the enemies, or at least most of the enemies, when the battle starts, which means that because all of the enemies are grouped up, your Taylene will also do like AoE damage here, so she will hit all of the enemies, and then your Tassi will fly in, because sometimes if you have Tassi at the front, the enemy will just burst the Tassi down, and then she will go into like the recovery state. And then it will take her like a long time to actually go to the enemy backline. But if you start the battle by stunning all of the enemies, that usually gives your Tassi enough time to fly in there, and then even if the Tassi is kind of like down into the recovery state, she will still do like continuous AoE damage to all of the enemies because of the way that her skill works. So that's why I think this team can utilize Walker. The simple idea is just that you stun the enemies so that your Tassi can fly in, and then your Taylene can AoE the enemies down, and then hopefully your Walker will sometimes stun the enemies once the battle is actually going on, and sometimes he will tank some of the damage, so that's his main role, so he's not going to be like a damage dealer. So yeah, that this can work against like all kinds of teams. Usually I prefer using this if the enemies are like grouped up in like this big group and you can't target Bonnie with someone like Sylvina or Nara, or you don't want to use or you can't use Aeron Burst. For example, in this situation, this team can win, but I would, if I have the option, Nara is like much better option just to pull the enemy Bonnie. But in these situations, you can't use that to pull the Bonnie. So yeah, maybe you can use him on some other teams as well. I don't know. I kind of tried using him on some different teams a little bit, but they were not really working because his impact is very low outside from the actual starting the battle with the stun. So then you really need to like have a team that can utilize that short stun duration, and I think the very good way of doing that is by having the Tassi fly in there. Maybe if you had some like twin team, he could be useful, and then maybe he would take more like a damage dealer role in that team, but I don't know, I don't have twins that I can really test him right now, but that's maybe something that could work, but he's not really that good outside from the stun ability. So the main use for him has been with attack teams. I haven't tried using him on any defense team, but I guess maybe he can be usable in defense team as well, because he has this interesting interaction with Aeron burst teams. So when the battle starts against an Aeron team, and Aeron pulls everyone together and then almost will like interrupt all of the enemies. But during that time between the pulling the enemies and the interruption, Walker has enough time to cast his stun ability. So that means that your heroes will be pulled together and like stunned by the Aeron. But then at the same time, most of the enemies will also be stunned by the Walker. So then that can mean that you are able to heal enough to keep your team alive against that burst team, because they don't have as much time to burst down your team before your healer comes back. But I haven't really tried this defense, and I don't know how well it will work against other teams. Like even if it does work against Aeron burst team, it might be like it's probably weak against some other teams. So I don't know if he's gonna be used in defense. Right now, I think Satrana's upgrade will be really good because she's already used. Walker has some use in PvP, and for the rest of the heroes, it kind of remains to be seen whether they will be more usable after the Enhanced Force upgrade, but honestly, probably they are not going to be that useful. I guess the biggest question mark is Soren, because I don't really know that much about him, and maybe he had some use in the last season's PvP, so yeah, I guess maybe he will be usable.